comes to cancer, how much of it really is genetic? And a lot of people say, oh, it's in my genes, I'm bound to get it. What can they do?
Well, they need to question the intellectual capacity of the person who told them it's genetic, okay? Because according to Charles Darwin, right, and Gregor Mendel, indisputably the fathers of genetics, I mean, wasn't Darwin's whole thing that it's the survival of the fittest? Okay? So if there was a gene that coded for cancer, you would think that there should be less and less and less and less and less and less cancer because the people with that gene would be deselected from the herd. They'd be culled from the herd. So if it was purely genetic, in a Darwinian sense, there should be less and less and less of it, not more and more and more of it, or a steady straight line of it. It should be less and less. Now, this is a somewhat complicated topic, but it bears dipping into here, and my colleague, Dr. Wallach, wrote an entire book about this. There's an emerging field called epigenetics, and there is a gigantic difference between a gene and a defective or mutated gene. And if you read the research carefully, the BRCA gene, for instance, which is related with breast cancer, isn't a gene. It's a mutation of a gene. It's a mutated gene. But nobody asks the question, what caused it to mutate? Nobody asks that question. You'd think that they would, but they don't. They just look for the presence of the mutated gene, and if it's there, you're in trouble, baby. That's why Angelina Jolie, arguably, ostensibly, I believe, wanted her breasts hacked off because they found the gene. It's not a gene, it's a mutated gene. But, you know, the average Joe on the street doesn't understand these distinctions, and medical professionals, by and large, don't talk about these distinctions, and they need to. There's a difference between a gene that actually codes for cancer and a mutation of a gene, and the mutation causes cancer. As far as I know, all of the genetic relationship between chromosomes and cancer are mutations. Now, Dr. Wallach was in charge of research in the 70s, and he discovered the first case of cystic fibrosis in a non-human. And he also discovered the cause of it. And the cause was a selenium deficiency in the blood of the pregnant mother. And because there was not enough of the trace mineral selenium, when the gene that coded for the lung tried to make a lung, it couldn't because there wasn't enough selenium. Kind of like if you had a printer, a color printer, and it needed 4 different types of ink, right? Red, yellow, blue, and whatever. White, black, black, black. Well, if you ran out of one of those colors of ink, the printer would still print a picture, but it wouldn't be right. Well, if your body runs out of nutrients at different stages of development, fetal development in the case of cystic fibrosis, you get a funky lung. And it's not because of a bad gene. It's because of not enough nutrients. And sometimes lack of minerals in the body will make the gene mutate and malform because the genes or chromosomes are held together by something called a metal finger. There are metal fingers which are made from minerals that provide structural integrity for chromosomes. If your body runs out of those minerals, the chromosomes are going to be deformed. And if you get, and that's a mutated gene, it's a mutated chromosome. So the field of genetics is, we know so little about what really goes on there. For instance, right, 23 pairs of human chromosomes. They recently found out that here's one chromosome up here, and here's another chromosome down here. They're not connected at all physically. They're not physically touching. If you make a change to this chromosome here, immediately there's a change on this chromosome here, immediately. It's like Einstein's spooky action at a distance, right? Einstein discovered a property of photons, light particles. Photons spin in a particular direction all of the time. If you take one photon and divide it into two, and now you have two photons that came from the same source, and you send this photon 1,000,000 miles this way, and you change the spin on this photon, the change on that photon 1,000,000 miles away immediately changes. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He really, literally called it that. Well, as it turns out, similar unusual phenomena happen with your chromosomes. So the notion that your illness is genetic is nonsense. Because if it were genetic, truly, there'd be less and less and less of it. Epigenetics is what's happening. Your chromosomes, your genetic material, themselves are running out of the nutrients that they need to get their job done and maintain their structural integrity. So as the chromosomes start to weaken, as the genetic material starts to weaken because of lack of nutrition, everything gets messed up. And again, this field of scientific study is called epigenetics, and that's where the future lies. However, we must not discount the fundamental foundation even to epigenetics, which is nutrients. Your body needs 90 essential nutrients, period. They're not in the food, period. Unless you are supplementing your diet with the 90 essential nutrients appropriate for your body weight in absorbable recipes every single solitary day, it is only a matter of time until your joint breaks, your chromosome breaks, your knee breaks, your heart breaks, something's going to break. And then your only option, because of the medical monopoly of the marketplace by the MDs, is to go to the MD and have them throw a drug at it. That's why we're here. And that's why I recommend people fire their MDs for chronic disease, because they've got nothing for you. We have everything for you, but ours is an undiscovered country. We are the gatekeepers to the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition, and people are destroyed by lack of knowledge. And that's why we're here. And that's why I have massive amounts of information on my website. That's why I do a radio show for 2 hours every day. I do live webinars every week in order to educate people as to the simple steps that they can do to optimize their body's structure and function.